Youths. It's all about youths. The new Canada squad. Youths. That means young people in Joe Pesci spiel. Hence the very creative thumbnail you may have enjoyed before unloading this or downloading this. Are we going to unload on Jesse Marsch? Probably not. It's Footy Prime. I'm Shams, and Jimmy Brennan's here, and Craig Forrest is here. Amy Walsh is here as well. A good, succinct podcast. Jesus, I'm out of it. Presser today, Dubs.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing too, I don't know. It was interesting enough. Jesse Marsch is well spoken, but I don't think we learned too much other than the squad that was dropped is very young.
Yeah.
And there's some absentees. Astor Johnston is out injured. Ishmael Kone is out, of course. Sam Piette, which we'll get to in a little bit, he's out as well. But overall, I mean, I don't think anything was to raise eyebrows in that press conference. Is that fair to say?
Fair to say. Nothing too earth-shattering or profound. No journalist is getting FOMO for not having hopped on. So, Jimmy, you'll be happy about that. Also, about
being busy as usual.
I'm referring to you as a journalist. Anyway, but no, I appreciate, despite that, I appreciate Jesse Marsch's energy. So I was lamenting before we pressed the record button that the women's program, which right now finds itself in a bit of a limbo because of the drone scandal and Bev Priestman being suspended, there's an unknown. There are question marks with the leadership of that program, even though they have a friendly booked for October 25th against Spain, the world champion. So that's good. The program won't, lie dormant. But they still don't know who that head coach is. So to see Jesse Marsch, and even though he might have to get himself up for this, there might be some self-talk in a mirror. I don't know what his routine is before he hops on these press conferences, but he always shows up high energy. He's always highly likable, highly respectful, and he's engaging. And you can just imagine that we're just seeing a tiny snippet of what is presented to the players on the training pitch and what is presented when he's meeting with dual or, guys who have multiple options to play for different countries. He was talking about Knight Labelle potentially being or having an option to play with Wales. So they're pouncing. Yes, it's about youth, but it's also about, and again, that great thumbnail that you prepared, Sharms, about giving these players an opportunity. And they have an extended training period here that he mentioned as well, where they'll get the occasion and the opportunity to acclimatize themselves, to get their footing within the system and to get an idea of what it feels like to be in camp with Jesse Marsch, but also to get to know their teammates and the environment that they hope to be in for a long time coming.
Yeah, Kwasi Poku gets a call up. You mentioned their Dubs, Jamie Knight Labelle, Santiago Lopez too. Craig, these are young players. You got Luc de Fougerolles still there, 18 years of age still. Certainly at the back, he's trying some new faces out there. Is it still a trying out phase for Jesse Marsch? It sounds crazy given what we saw at Copa, but there's still a lot of faces we haven't really seen on this stage. Is that what this is kind of all about?
A little bit, but it's also going back to what Dubs is saying about the environment that he's creating. And the U.S. do this very well for players that are eligible to play for other countries, bringing them in, get them in the field, building relationships within that squad. And so when they have a choice, and they've been to the U.S. camp for 10 times, they're like, yeah, I'm going to play for the U.S. Well, I think that's part of what he's doing here. And also the fact that if these young players do well, they're going to get an opportunity to get into the squad. And also that experience in the squad and being around some of these, exceptional professionals is going to put them in really good stead.
Hey, Jimmy, it's a good point, that's what he's doing right now. But because of what happened at Copa, the expectations have raised for this group of players, right? We expect this team to beat Panama, even though Panama is not a bad team, even though it's a friendly, it means nothing. Is there added pressure on a coach to, you want to blood new players, bring in some dual nationals, sure, see what we got depth-wise, while also knowing that wins are kind of expected now at a certain level?
Right. But I'm going to go back to what you said, where it means nothing. Friendlies do mean something. You have to get something out of these matches. Like I said before, you have objectives and you have certain targets that you want to get out of these games. And it's important that they do get it. And these young guys that are coming in, whether it's Labelle, Lopez, even Poku coming in, these young guys, this is an opportunity for them. This is an opportunity for Jesse Marsch to see how these younger players how handle the international stage, and whether or not that they can buy into his style of play and his philosophy. He's going to get to know their character, what they're like on the pitch. He'll know their habits off the pitch when he's in and around the hotel. So there's an awful lot of learning that goes on behind the scenes, and you do tend to get an awful lot out of these friendlies, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch. And it's an opportunity for these players to come in and showcase what they can do and show that they do belong here, and that Canada's going to give them an opportunity and a chance to play international football.
And he also mentioned that roster is going to get trimmed in advance of them. They have the extended period or training period. Then they're going to go to Toronto to play Panama. And it is meaningful because the ranking is on the line here and how they're going to be seated in Nations League. So it's an extremely meaningful match, but it's always a balance, right? It's about creating that environment where you're going to hopefully let these young players loose, like accelerate that breakout and accelerate that development path that he kept referring back to, like the Jesse Marsch buzzwords scale. If we have it, like at the beginning, it was dynamic. And then now he said development path and like kept saying it. So it's the long-term one towards 26, but also these individual goals on that timeline, right? So it's about securing these results, which he's done, but then it's having that core, and Forrest alluded to it, with these incredible players, highly talented, who are going to be there to shepherd along this youth and provide the role models in-house, but also to create the touch lines and the baseline for performance, right? As they continue along this path long-term, but they're still able to get the results at these different marks along that timeline.
Hey, Craig, legitimately though, ahead of 2026, how many spots are up for grabs here? Forget health and injuries. A lot can happen, right? It's 20 months away, right? Which is quite a long time still, really. But okay, so up top you have your Laren and you have your David. Okay, we spoke about Laren in depth in a couple of shows ago. Then you got your Eustachio and Kone as your two central midfielders. Fonzie as a fullback. Johnston as a right back. You got a couple of winger positions maybe up for grabs. Schafferberg looks great so far. I'm not sure. Ali Ahmed's playing a lot of minutes right now on the right, but Richie Reyes played well there. Then you got your Bombito and honestly, from how many spots are we actually fighting for here? I would hope every spot with depth. I get that. It's a kind of a dumb question, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. But I mean, it wasn't that long ago we thought the center back position was up for grabs, like,
yeah, that's true.
In 26. And now you're going, well, I'm not sure it is. With Bombito and Cornelius doing as well as they are. But then you got these young players coming through that are looking at it going, if I get an opportunity, I do well. Put myself in the shop window, got an opportunity to get in there myself. So in footballing terms, 26 is still a long ways away. So I would think that there's plenty of players out there, and the goalkeepers as well, that are thinking that I might be able to wedge my way in there in 26. Who knows? I would be thinking that way.
And it's also another buzzword there when he's talking about quasi-poku and his positional flexibility. And he also alluded to it with Zorhan Basong, whom I know decently well from his time in Montreal. And I think he's had a better time of it. Where is he now? Is he at Sporting? Can't remember where he's playing, but I think he's done better there. So maybe it's not about
Sporting KC.
Yes, not about shoring up these spots and like looking at your depth chart. Obviously, as you move forward, you want like a nailed down 11, and then you want depth so that you can sort of plan out and get these results short term, but also aim for the future. But it's these players who can maybe fill in gaps in these this type of tournament play, and not necessarily a friendly against Panama, but like when you're projecting long term for the potential, the upside of a player's ceiling, like that's something that might allow them to stand head and shoulders above kind of this crop of youth that are trying to break their way into the squad.
But Jimmy, I mean, Dubs is right there, but I hope not one player in that team assumes the spot is theirs. You hope that they're hungry and they're still fighting for it, despite this youthful movement coming up behind them. But is there a position where you can see, okay, yeah, I can see that changing between now and 2020?
The thing is, too, Sharms, you can never predict too far ahead because the game changes so much. Players change, performances change. A lot of these younger guys now that are 19, 20, 21 getting first team football, you're going to start to see them really improve, where they might be taking somebody else's spot that's in that original starting 11 that we have right now. But will this starting 11 be at the same at 2026? I don't think so. I think because players change all the time. But you need that balance. You need the older players and you need the younger players that are going to be coming through the system. It's very similar to like when with us with the Gold Cup team in 2000. We had a lot of older players, but we had that balance where the younger guys were coming through as well. And all our debuts were all friendlies, the younger players, whether it was myself and Paul Salteri, Birchie, all these guys that were coming through. But it was an opportunity for the manager as well to see how we interact with those older players. And we just had a really good balance, good bunch of guys. Sure, there were some other guys there that were younger that were good players, but they just didn't really get into the squad or didn't fit into it. And it's all about the chemistry as well when you go into a World Cup or big tournaments. You need a good balance of players that are there for the right reasons, players that aren't selfish or ego-driven, but are all going to stick to the game plan and fight for one another. So there's a lot of work that goes on with the managers and the staff to try to figure out what's going to be our 22 or our 24 players that's going to be going into this tournament. And now
with form and various other things, exactly. Right? Yeah. But they've set their standards high, and all the players that you mentioned that should be in that team in 26, they've set their own standards and they're very high. They've got to keep them.
Which is great, because now that what happens is those younger players have to match that standard, right? Because the standard is set. And when they come in, they know the level of training, they know the performances. They've been watching over the last couple of years how this team's been playing. They've been watching the Copa. So they know the level that they've got to get to if they want to be in there. Now's the time to start shining for those players, because I know for myself, if I'm 19 looking at this squad and thinking we got a World Cup coming up, believe me, I'm working my ass off to get into this team.
What do you mean by like fitting in with the veterans, the young players? Like, what do you want to see as a coach? Obviously, a lot of those guys are going to be pretty. Okay, I'm not going to use the term starstruck because I don't think Canada has that kind of superstar. Maybe Fonzie, but how do they fit in? What are you looking to see from this young group?
I want to see professionalism. A young kid that's coming in that wants to be there, that wants to listen, who doesn't think he's already made it and he's a top player, and that understands he's still got a lot of room to improve. You're young, and these young players should be asking the questions to the older guys. How do I improve? How do I get better? How do I get to where you've got to? And it's a learning curve for these young guys. And so
leaving a good impression.
Character's massive for young players.
Craig, you mentioned the keepers earlier. I've seen some debates about who is the number one. Has he got a number one? Is it Max Crepeau or is it Dane St. Clair? I mean, to me, he's made his mind up. At this point, barring terrible fall off in form, it is Max Crepeau. Do you think that's the case, or is it still very much open?
Well, I always think it would be open, but it's also down to Max to keep that position. It's for him to lose at the moment, but that can change very, very quickly. How he performs at club level, what's going on with him at Portland, what's going on with all these players. And Dane St. Clair be consistent enough to be looking at the national team and being a potential starter. He's still very young as a goalkeeper goes, so I would say the answer to that would be yes. So he's got to be thinking that he can perform his way in there as well.
Dubs, is it just those two battling for it? Is Jonathan Sirois, who's in the squad, is he potentially good enough to be a number one at some point as well? James Patemis, who you never even hear about anymore, obviously had bad injury. Now he's at Portland backing up Max again, right? Is he a guy that has potential? I mean, where do you see? Is it a 2, 3, 4 horse race? Tom McGill is another guy, overseas.
Yeah, I think it's Crepeau and everybody else at this point. I think maybe Dane has that edge for the number 2, but a really, really deep, I think, in that position as Canada traditionally is, right? On the men's side and on the women's side. But Sirois is a guy who's still quite young as it pertains to goalkeepers and where their prime is. And where you're going to see his best. I think he's had a little bit of an uneven season where he's been disappointing at times. He was always really honest. He's quite well spoken. I think he offers, good self-assessment. So I think you look at that from a media perspective, you have to think that he's highly coachable and he's working on things that he needs to work on. But I think that is his club form has probably hurt him. I think he's capable of much more, especially as when you look at his distribution. I think shot stopping is good. His positional kind of awareness, I think, could be better this season. I've seen him be better. Like last season was much better. So I think a good upside, and I think he's got a lot of room to grow. But I wanted to go back to what you're saying about what Marsch, or like what a coach wants to see from this youth. And you kind of alluded to it with a guy like Basong that I've already talked about, where, you know, he's played, when he was at Montreal, he played more as a wing back. I thought defensively, he had a lot of deficiencies there. So if he's playing more of a central position, like he's winning duels, Marsch was talking about how good he is, kind of instinctive on the press, but then also on the counter press. So I think it's kind of two-pronged. It's looking at a guy who's surprised or maybe performed well at their club setup. Can they do that when they're in camp? And then a guy like Nathan Saliba, who again,
Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan. I think that's him trying to be Nathan. It's neither Nathan nor Nathan. It's Nathan. Anyway,
yeah, it's something in between.
It's a Jesseism. A guy like Saliba, who gets called in late to that September camp and then surprises, and like in Marsch's words, like how quickly he adapted to the speed of play, how quickly he adapted to the level, and how he was able to get his own up to that level. And then he brought that form back to his club, where he's performed very well for Montreal since. And then hopefully, again, he's able to kind of use that to springboard himself into an even better performance with the national team. So you're getting it kind of on both sides. So I think Basong remains a question mark. But then if he can replicate those types of club performances at a higher level than a national team camp, then for Marsch, that's a highly impressive thing. I mean, you still have to do it in games, and will he get minutes? And he was laughing. He was talking about Saliba and how he got in there for his first cap, but he never touched the ball. So hopefully he gets some minutes against Panama. That would be good, where he kind of feels like he's able to make an impact. But
it's a great point though, Dobbs. I mean, so a player that he's competing with for his position is Ishmael Kone, who we all assume is going to walk into that team when healthy, right? And right now he will. He's fantastic. But he burst onto the scene, a couple of years ago now, maybe less than that, in his last year in Montreal, kind of out of nowhere for those that aren't closely watching Montreal, right? He's still a young player. He's still inexperienced. A Saliba, a Nathan Saliba, right? Who's making his name now in Montreal, could a year from now be playing in Europe somewhere, potentially, bursting onto the scene. You know, so when you have these wily veterans cemented in their positions who are like 20 years old, 21 years old, they have got to still fight for it, because there is guys breathing down their necks, and who knows who's going to make up that midfield by the time the World Cup comes around. Is it key though, Jimmy, to get a move to European football? MLS is a good league, you know, clearly, probably tier 2. It's not tier 1, not yet anyway. But Jacob Schafferberg, who's been just this revelation for Canada during and since Copa, really. Does he need to engineer a move overseas to improve his growth and to confirm that spot as his?
Well, I think the most important thing is that you're playing first team football week in and week out, and you're performing, because you need to have that standard, and that standard's got to be high. Then the rest takes care of itself, because if you're playing well, you're playing with confidence, you're enjoying your football, you'll get noticed. And if he does end up making a move to Europe, he's only going to improve. It depends what league he goes to. Look, if he goes to Belgium 3rd division, then there's no point in going. But if you're going to go to a top league, and you're going to be playing football week in and week out, just like the Canadians are doing right now, this is only going to make it a healthy competition throughout the whole team. And with Schaffelberg, do I think he could go to Europe and play in a top league? Absolutely. Absolutely. He's getting a lot of recognition right now for his performances. What is he, 12th in the league for jerseys sold, which goes to show you that the fans love him. They love what he's doing. They love his work rate. And he's just got to keep on improving, and the rest will take its course. And I think he'll eventually get to Europe at some point.
Craig, do you agree with that? That obviously things will take care of themselves, but we've seen what it's done for Ishmael Kone, just the way people perceive him now. Even though he hasn't played that much at Marseille, he's been injured. But you know, he showed moments. The fans love him. The manager loves him. It does seem that when you talk about Kone now, we talk about him from a different standpoint, just because, he plays occasionally for Marseille. Yeah.
I mean, really, the Major League Soccer has done its job for Canada brilliantly well. I mean, the opportunities that players have had through the Major League system has really helped them springboard their careers, which is something that wasn't really possible. I don't even think when did that rule change where Canadians weren't internationals playing in
When
this
was that?
league?
It's a good question.
Like
actually.
Not that
2016,
long ago.
something like that.
Yeah,
17.
Not that long ago.
Yeah, not long. So since then, we've seen a huge number of Canadian players getting opportunities. Guys you never even heard of all of a sudden coming to the forefront. So, yeah, I mean, Nathan's only 20 years old, eh?
He's young. He's young, all right. Well, Kwasi Poko, I mean, CPL is loving this, aren't they? This guy played left back and centre forward for Forge, gets a move to Belgium. Not third division, I don't think, Jimmy. Where is Molenbeek? Second
I think
division?
it's second tier.
Second tier, is it? Yeah. But still, a good young player who's made that pathway, CPL to Europe, right? If he can stick around and maybe get another move in a couple of years' time, again, MLS is doing its job, but then finally we can start saying, so too is the CPL.
Yeah, there's a number of players in the CPL have used it to other places, and if they want, they can stay in the CPL. But it gives them a second look, another opportunity if they want to give themselves an opportunity to go to another league in Europe or Major League Soccer again. CPL doing its job really for these secondary players, if you want to put it that way.
Hey, I tell you what, it's nice to see Canada finally play some CONCACAF opposition again, eh?
It's been so long.
It's been ages, Just kind of getting bored of this, top tier teams, the Argentinas and Uruguays and Frances of the world.
Yeah.
Come on. Finally, some rivalries.
And Marsch very diplomatically kind of summed up Panama by saying they're a perfect balance of football savvy and physicality.
physicality. You had to get that in there.
Yeah.
I know, I like that too.
Another word for shithousery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prepare yourself, boys. Gonna miss Johnston in this one, that's for sure. Anything else you want to get to from the squad announcement and Jesse's press conference? It's a short one today, which is fine. Dubs has got more important things coming up. So where's your hit? Is it RDS? Is it TSN? What is it?
On TSN 690. Sorry, my local radio station made some soccer talk.
Okay, well, we'll see. It's an interesting squad. It is. The big boys are there, generally speaking, other than a couple of injured players. But yeah, the youth is good to see, and I look forward to that. And good for Montreal for hosting camp. And next week, right, Dubs? Is it the 9th? I think it starts.
I think it's before that. I think they come in on the Monday. They'll be in a community. And then on the Tuesday, the Quebec-born players plus some alumni of the men's national team who have been with them, who are still Quebec-based, will be going out in kind of neighboring like Montreal communities to run sessions. That's
my point. Very quickly, I know you got to leave, but no Sam Piette in the squad and camps in Montreal. It's a shame. I get it.
It is. And actually something I was going to bring up, but then I hesitated. But I mean, the fact that Marsch said that he's an incredible person probably 5 times. I mean, I think he made his point that he's a good dude. He's a good
friend
human.
Vibes.
We all know that. But when you're just talking about how good a person is and there's very little football talk, I don't think that bodes well for your future.
There's a story of my dating life before my wife, Oh, you could be friends.
You're such a good friend, Sharms.
Yeah, just not at all sexy.
We just wore down, didn't we? Just grinded her down.
I ground that way. Yeah, the missus I ground down finally.
Yeah.
Can we
having
not say that
ground
about
against her. I won't go there.
No,
we won't do that. All right, everyone. Thank you. It's been Footy Prime again. Make sure you like and follow and subscribe. And this Saturday, October the 5th, 9 a.m., Nickel 9 Distillery in Toronto. Come and join us. Not Dubs, she can't make it because she lives miles away. But with Craig's old team against his older team, Ipswich against West Ham. Have some breakfast, then maybe drink some gin before noon. That's always fun.
Oh, yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be good. It'll be a good day. Good morning.
Check out our social channels for all the information there. But yeah, thanks everybody. Cheers for listening. Bye.